Hi everyone, welcome back to DGMC, Divan-e-Ghalib, Meri Zubani. To all our returning viewers, we are very happy you could join us again. And to the new viewers, we are delighted you discovered the podcast and decided to tune in for the first time. Now, if you were with me in the previous episode, you know that currently we are going through Ghazal 36 from Diwan-e-Ghalib, Phir mujhe dida-e yaad aaya. We've already covered 7 couplets from the Ghazal. Today we are going to cover the 8th couplet. So, allow me to narrate couplet 8 from Ghazal 36 from Divan-e-Ghalib. फिर तेरे कूचे को जाता है ख्याल, फिर तेरे कूचे को जाता है ख्याल, dil-e-gum-gashta मगर याद आया. Let's do a quick approximate translation. Once again, my thought drifts towards your street, but then my long lost heart comes to my mind. There are some places we never truly leave. No matter how much time passes, no matter how much distance grows, no matter how much loss we have incurred in those places, something within us always returns back. Again and again. Sometimes physically, sometimes in a memory, and then sometimes through a mere drifting thought. In Urdu poetry, few forces are more powerful than memory, especially memory in love, because memory in love does not obey any rules, right? It will arrive unannounced, it will come uninvited, and once it is awakened, it rarely stops at remembrance only. In today's sher, Ghalib reveals one such devastating facet of memory. Deceptively simple on the surface, this sher conceals the tragedy of a lover who still feels irresistibly pulled towards the very place where he risks losing everything. The true power of this sher lies in the fact that this tragedy does not emerge through very loud and dramatic events. In fact, it reveals through very subtle, quiet movement of a single drifting thought, Khayaal. Now, before we start following this drifting Khayaal any further, we must enter these emotional worlds that Ghalib has hidden inside these words of movement incorporated in the sher. Because in Urdu poetry, Kuuche, Khayaal, gum-gashta are never merely words. These words create worlds, worlds of longing, loss, passion, and recurrence. And without entering these worlds first, the true depth of the sher will always remain out of reach. There is no other word in this sher that carries more emotional gravity than the very destination for the lover's drifting thought. Kuuche. Kuuche literally means narrow streets, bylanes, lanes. But symbolically in Urdu poetry, Kuuche usually is used to describe the street of the beloved, the threshold of the beloved, a place for the lover where many emotions juxtapose, emotions of longing, waiting, devotion, many a times even humiliation. In Urdu poetry, Kuuche is never ever a simple, insignificant, narrow street. Many a time, Kuuche becomes one with the beloved who resides there, and hence becomes a sacred destination for the lover. मिर्जा गालिब का शेर, निकलना खुद से आदम का सुनते आए हैं, लेकिन बहुत बेआबरू होकर तेरे कूचे से हम निकले. The approximate translation is, from beginning of time, I've been hearing about this humiliating exit of Adam from the Garden of Eden. But it's nothing compared to the disappointment and humiliation I felt when I had to leave your street behind. Now, there are times when the Kuuche is famous and well known because of the lover who resides in it. इब्ने इंशा का ये शेर, इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना, एक नार पे जान को हार गया, मशहूर है उसका अफसाना. In one of the lanes of this town, a passionate lover by the name Insha, and here the poet is referring to himself, lost his heart to a fair lady. His love story is famous far and wide. That is why the lover's thought in today's sher does not drift towards the beloved per se, but towards her kucha, her street, the sacred emotional orbit surrounding her world. And in this drifting movement of thought, Ghalib introduces another simple yet potent word in the sher, Khayaal. Now, Khayaal literally means thought, idea, imagination. But symbolically, in poetry, Khayaal is never merely a thought. Many times it is a memory or imagination that longingly and silently moves inside the lover. Unlike deliberate thinking, Khayaal in Urdu poetry often has autonomy. The lover does not create it. It comes to him, moves through him, pulls at him. And this is precisely what makes Khayaal so dangerous in Urdu poetry. Because the Khayaal in Urdu poetry bypasses logic, discipline, restraint. सलीम कौसर का ये शेर, मैं ख्याल हूँ किसी और का, मुझे सोचता कोई और है, सरे आईना मेरा अक्स है, पसे आईना कोई और है. The approximate translation is, I am someone else's thought. I am thought though by someone else. It's my image in the mirror, yet it's someone else behind the mirror. In this autonomy that Khayaal has in Urdu poetry, in our sher today, it starts moving towards the beloved street, towards the street where the lover once had borne a very huge loss, a loss that was both devastating and permanent, the loss of his heart. And that brings us to dil-e-gum-gashta. Dil, heart, gum, lost, disappeared, vanished, and gashta, one who has become or one who has wandered into a state. Dil-e-gum-gashta in poetry symbolically means a heart that was lost and remained lost. Not lost momentarily, not lost accidentally, but completely absorbed in lostness, if you may. I know that's probably not a word, but you get the idea. Hafiz Jalandhari का ये शेर, जिंदगी फिरदौसे गुम गश्ता को पा सकती नहीं, मौत ही आती है ये मंजिल दिखाने के लिए. The approximate translation is, life can never attain that forever lost paradise. It's death, and only death, that will arrive to reveal this destination. Now, with these symbolic words, Kuuche, Khayaal, dil-e-gum-gashta, finally settled into us, we can start moving with the sher itself. फिर तेरे कूचे को जाता है ख्याल. Ghalib begins the sher with a simple yet mighty word. Phir, again. In doing so, he quietly repeats a pattern that has already appeared in this ghazal before. If Yaad is the body of this ghazal, Phir is its recurring pulse. Phir in Urdu poetry is not just simple repetition. Phir usually symbolizes the power of recurrence, the power of involuntary return, the power of emotional cycles that refuse to end. Phir, in fact, in DGMZ's humble opinion, is the recurring powerful force that runs through every vein of Urdu poetry, be it longing, be it memory, be it grief, be it passion, be it even destruction. नज़ीर नज़र का ये शेर, अगर वो हादिसा फिर से हुआ तो मैं तेरे इश्क में फिर पड़ गया तो. The approximate translation is, if that accident was to happen all over again, then if I was to fall in love with you all over again, then. Once one begins noticing Phir, the recurrence, one realizes that Urdu poetry does not describe love as a one-time emotional event, no matter how big, no matter how earth-shattering. But a one-time event? No. Urdu poetry does not treat love like a one-time event. It, in fact, describes love as a recurring condition that repeatedly reclaims the lover. Cyclical events that repeatedly play between the lover and the beloved. Again and again and again. अर्चना जौहरी का ये शेर, कोई शोला जला गया फिर से, सोई ख्वाहिश जगा गया फिर से, मैं जिसे भूलने ही वाला था वो मुझे याद आ गया फिर से. The approximate translation is, someone came and rekindled the embers once again. They awakened sleeping desires once again. The one I was just about to forget came back to memory once again. Ghalib combines this power of Phir with Khayaal in today's sher, creating a very dangerously powerful combination. Phir, the recurring force driving emotional return. Khayaal, the continuous drifting movement of thought. Both almost impossible to control. This is why the movement of the sher feels very subtle, yet so psychologically devastating. Nothing dramatic is happening on the outside. There is no declaration. There is not even a deliberate act of remembering. The lover does not say, I remember her, I miss her. Instead, his Khayaal quietly begins drifting once again towards her street. And this is the true power of Phir. It transforms one single moment of longing into a recurring condition of existence itself. शाहिदा मजीद का ये शेर, किसी ने फिर से लगाई सदा उदासी की, पलट के आने लगी है फजा उदासी की. The approximate translation is, someone once again cried out the lament of grief. The season of sadness has turned around and started walking towards me again. So this drifting Khayaal is going towards her Kuuche, the beloved's street. Now, again, in Urdu poetry, the beloved street is never just a street, right? It is in fact the threshold of eternal longing. A world that belongs to the beloved and is endlessly yearned for by the lover. More than with the beloved herself, the lover often becomes familiar with her street. That is why the lover's thought drifts there first, not towards the beloved herself, but towards the sacred space surrounding her, towards the outer edges of her universe. And in this distance, right, there lies an inherent adab also. Even in longing, the lover conducts himself with discipline. He does not trespass upon the beloved directly. He, in fact, lets himself and his thoughts circle her world from afar. One of our favorite shares, मीर तकी मीर का दूर बैठा, right? दूर बैठा गुबारे मीर उससे, इश्क बिन ये अदब नहीं आता. The approximate translation is, the dust storm of Mir, and the poet is referring to himself, is sitting far away from her. Love never comes without this decorum and respect. And yet, despite keeping this distance between themselves, the distance does not help lessen the pull. If anything, it deepens it. Her street slowly transforms into a collection of memories, a place for longing, a sacred space of ritualistic return. The beloved street for the lover is a place of endless possibilities. यहाँ कुछ भी हो सकता है, right? The beloved may pass. The lover can wait here. Memories may awaken, and the longing is allowed to endlessly wander without ever arriving. For the lover, the beloved street is not just geography. In fact, it is gravity itself. And perhaps that is why lovers in Urdu poetry become attached not only to the beloved, but to everything surrounding her. Her street, her doorway, her walls, even the dust of her world begins to carry emotional weight. This longing is captured beautifully in the famous lines attributed to Majnu. I pass by the walls of Laila and kiss this wall and that wall. It is not the love of the walls that has consumed my heart, but the love of the one who dwells within them. So, what appears irrational from the outside becomes inevitable within the emotional universe of love. And today's sher by Ghalib captures this beautifully. The lover is unable to survive the gravitational pull of the beloved street on his Khayaal. As the drifting of this Khayaal keeps Advancing towards the beloved street, Ghalib quietly brings in a realization for the lover. A realization of what that street took away from him once. The second line, dil-e-gum-gashta magar yaad aaya. But then my long lost heart came to my mind. Dil-e-gum-gashta. What a hopelessly devastating phrase. Not a broken heart, not a defeated heart, not even a wounded heart, but a heart that is lost. Dil-e-gum-gashta, a heart that wandered away, got lost, and remained lost. Gum-gashta in Urdu poetry is not just a loss of direction. It in fact is the loss of one's core itself. A state where something has drifted so far from its center that returning begins to feel impossible. दाग दहलवी का ये शेर, हमने अपना दिले गुमगश्ता ना पाया खोकर, वरना यहाँ ढूंढने वालों ने खजाने पाए. Good one, right? The approximate translation is, I could never find my heart once I had lost it. Else others who searched found many a treasure. The lover continues to exist. He speaks, he walks, he remembers, he longs, but the emotional core through which love, grief, longing, and feeling once flowed, that core is no longer with him. The heart has wandered somewhere beyond reach. The cruelty of fate is such that the lover has learned to live with this irretrievable loss. He has somehow pushed it deep into the forgotten recesses of his memory. Until his thought starts to drift once again towards her street. Suddenly, the long lost heart returns to the lover, not physically, but as memory, as absence, as realization. Beautiful, just beautiful. Ghalib, the maestro, uses the lover's drifting khayaal towards the beloved's Kuuche to reveal the loss of his dil-e-gum-gashta. The revelation arrives quietly, not through faryad, not through nala, not through dramatic collapse, but through awareness, through a very slow inward recognition, almost clinical in its calmness, right? Almost as if the lover pauses midway through his drifting thoughts and suddenly realizes, the last time I wandered there, I did not return whole. Something precious within me was tragically lost behind. In that moment, the beloved street transforms, right? It transforms. It is no longer merely the epicenter of longing. It now becomes the epicenter of irreversible emotional loss. This is exactly where the movement of the sher changes direction. Until this moment, everything had been drifting outward. The thought, the longing, the movement towards her world. And then, magar. A small word, but a sharp turn. Magar halts everything in its tracks. The drifting khayaal cannot continue any further. Something interrupts it. Not externally, but internally. It's almost as if the lover suddenly reins in his own thoughts before they wander too far. Almost as if a hand reaches from within and gently pulls the lover's Khayaal back before it can step into the beloved street. Now, the question is why? Why? Why pull back? Why restrain yourself? Why stop moving towards the thing that is most precious to you? Yaad, the very body of this ghazal. The lover remembers. A memory comes back to him. He remembers what happened the last time he wandered into that street. He remembers the devastating price he paid for wandering by losing his heart. Not metaphorically, not temporarily, but irretrievably. Dil-e-gum-gashta, a heart that wandered away, got lost, and never ever returned. The slow, inevitable drifting of the lover's Khayaal towards the beloved street is interrupted by this memory of what that street took from the lover. And yet, the pull towards her street still exists. Perhaps it always will. But now, along with the pull, exists this memory of the heart that wandered in her street and never returned. So, this pull of the street will not have a monopoly anymore, right? Now, it will be counteracted by this awareness, by this memory, by this realization. And the lover, of course, is trapped between both, right? On one hand, the irresistible pull of her street, and on the other hand, the devastating memory of what that street took from him. The mastery of this sher lies in Ghalib's description of how this effortless pull repeatedly defeats the conscious resistance. Again and again and again. The pull towards that street survives even after the loss of the heart. We know that lover in Urdu poetry is not built to protect himself from destruction. He is built differently. The lover does not merely endure destruction, he longs to lose himself to the beloved. And that is why we see in today's sher the lover trapped in this terrifying condition. The awareness exists, the loss exists, the emotional cost exists, and yet her street defeats all three and keeps pulling at the lover, at his thoughts. Now, with such an overwhelming pull, why then does the lover or his Khayaal not arrive in the street fully? Well, because Magar Yaad Aya. But then he remembers. And memory in this sher does not merely remember, it warns, it teaches, it pulls the lover inward, just as longing is pulling him outward. पीर सैयद नसीरुद्दीन नासिर गिलानी का ये शेर, आते ही हम तो कूचाए जाना में लुट गए, दिल खो गया नासिर हमारा यहीं कहीं. The approximate translation is, as soon as I arrived in the beloved street, I was robbed, immediately and completely. My heart was lost, Nasir, and the poet is referring to himself, somewhere around here only. The only thing worth offering her, and the only thing she would perhaps find worthy of accepting, has already been lost in her street forever. The sher opens up multiple questions, multiple possibilities. Truly Ghalib, right? Number one, is the lover afraid of losing another precious part of himself in the beloved street again? Number two, is he hesitant to enter the street empty handed, with nothing worthy left to offer? And number three, perhaps it is not the street that is frightening him, but the memory of it. Because a thought drifting towards her street, if left unchecked, may drift into another memory of her, and then another, and then another. And without a heart left within him, how will he survive the onslaught of these memories? Now, whatever of these three scenarios is playing in the lover's mind, the awareness remains the same. Never forget what you lost in that street. Rein in your thought before they too drift there. A tragic movement indeed, where Ghalib, the lover, silently teaches himself not to move outward in longing, but to move inward in remembrance of the loss. And if the lover fails to teach himself this movement, this inward movement, then he must try again, and again, and again. Now, after descending through the drifting thought, the recurrence, the interruption, the longing, the memory, and the loss, it is time to appreciate this sher in its totality. It is fascinating to see how Ghalib fills the couplet with words that move, with words that wander. Kuuche, Jaata, Khayaal, dil-e-gum-gashta. Everything in the sher seems to be moving, drifting, flowing. And yet, Ghalib keeps all this wandering firmly anchored to the two forces that quietly govern not only this couplet but the entire ghazal. Number one, Yaad. Number two, Phir. If Yaad is the body of this ghazal, Phir is the recurring pulse. The drifting, the pull, the interruption, the reining in, all of them ultimately draw their power from either memory or recurrence. Phir, the thought drifts. Phir, the memory awakens. Phir, the lover attempts to pull himself back. Some of these recurrences happen before the memory arrives. Some of these happen only after the memory arrives. And therein lies Ghalib's true brilliance. Once again, he builds a unique persona for memory, in which he does not portray memory as a singular emotional event, but he portrays memory as this endlessly returning condition that happens to the lover again and again and again. After all the wandering, after all the anchoring, one just cannot resist marveling at the labyrinth Ghalib creates within this sher. And all this because a thought, a khayaal of the lover drifted towards her street, her Kuuche. Not towards the beloved, not towards union, not even towards an encounter. The Khayaal drifted towards her street. And that drifting was powerful enough to awaken memory, reveal loss, and force the lover to pull himself inwards. As you absorb this realization of the sher, a question emerges. Absolutely natural, absolutely unavoidable, right? And the question is, what if the lover's khayaal, the lover's thought, had not stopped at the street? What if his thought had reached the beloved herself? If merely the thought of her street could unravel the lover this completely, what devastation would the thought of the beloved herself cause? Well, we could not know because yaad prevented it. Magar yaad aaya. Yaad of dil-e-gum-gashta stopped that revelation before it began. And maybe that is for the best. Because somewhere deep within himself, the lover knows he may survive his thoughts drifting towards her street, but he will not survive his thoughts drifting towards her. Our lover in today's sher drifted and then stopped himself from entering the beloved street. But there are some lovers who not only drift towards the beloved street, they merge with it. They become one with it. This emotional oneness of the lover with the beloved street is captured vividly and surreally by Ibn Insha in one of his nazms. So, allow us to narrate for you nazm titled बस्ती के एक कूचे में by Ibn Insha. इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना एक नार पे जाको हार गया, मशहूर है उसका अफसाना। उस नार में ऐसा रूप न था जिस रूप से दिन की धूप दबे। इस शहर में क्या क्या गोरी है, महताब रुखे गुलनार लबे। कुछ बात थी उसकी बातों में, कुछ भेद था उसकी चितवन में। वही भेद की जोत जगाते हैं किसी चाहने वाले के मन में। उसे अपना बनाने की धुन में हुआ आप ही आप से बेगाना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। ना चंचल खेल जवानी के, ना प्यार की अलहड़ घाते थी। बस राह में उनका मिलना था या फोन पे उनकी बातें थी। इस इश्क पे हम भी हंसते थे, बेहासिल सा बेहासिल था। एक जोर बिफरते सागर में ना कश्ती थी ना साहिल था। जो बात थी इनके जी में थी, जो भेद था यकसर अनजाना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। एक रोज मगर बरखा रुत में, वो भादो थी या सावन था। दीवार पे बीच समुंदर के ये देखने वालों ने देखा। मस्ताना हाथ में हाथ दिए ये एक कगर पे बैठे थे। यूं शाम हुई फिर रात हुई, जब सैलानी घर लौट गए। क्या रात थी वो जी चाहता है, उस रात पे लिखें अफसाना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। हाँ, उम्र का साथ निभाने के थे अहद बहुत, पैमान बहुत। वो जिन पे भरोसा करने में कुछ सूद नहीं, नुकसान बहुत। वो नार ये कहकर दूर हुई, मजबूरी सजन मजबूरी, ये वहशत से रंजूर हुए और रंजूरी सी रंजूरी। उस रोज हमें मालूम हुआ उस शख्स का मुश्किल समझाना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। गो आग से छाती जलती थी, गो आग से दरिया बहता था। हर एक से दुख नहीं कहता था, चुप रहता था, गम सहता था। नादां हैं वो जो छेड़ते हैं इस आलम में नादानों को। उस शख्स से एक जवाब मिला, सब अपनों को बेगानों को। कुछ और कहो तो सुनता हूं, इस बाब में कुछ मत फरमाना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। अब आगे का तहकीक नहीं, गो सुनने को हम सुनते थे। उस नार की जो जो बातें थी, उस नार के जो जो किस्से थे। एक शाम जो उसको बुलवाया, कुछ समझाया बेचारे ने। उस रात ये किस्सा पाक किया, कुछ खा ही लिया दुखियारे ने। क्या बात हुई, किस तौर हुई, अखबार से लोगों ने जाना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। हर बात की खोज तो ठीक नहीं, तुम हमको कहानी कहने दो। उस नार का नाम मकाम है क्या, इस बात पे पर्दा रहने दो। हमसे भी तो सौदा मुमकिन है, तुमसे भी जफा हो सकती है। ये अपना बयां हो सकता है, ये अपनी कथा हो सकती है। वो नार भी आखिर पछताई, किस काम का ऐसा पछताना। इस बस्ती के एक कूचे में एक इंशा नाम का दीवाना। And this is what makes this nazm from Insha so emotionally charged, right? Throughout the sher, today's sher, Ghalib's lover interrupts himself, reins in his thought, remembers the cost of wandering too far, and tries to stop the drifting movement before it fully reaches the beloved street. But then, in this nazm, Insha quietly inhabits the beloved street completely. He does not merely orbit it, he lives there, breathes there, loses himself there, and suddenly one realizes, while Ghalib's lover still struggles against the pull, Insha's lover seems to whisper, too late, the drift has already won. All right, that brings us to the end of फिर तेरे कूचे को जाता है ख्याल, dil-e-gum-gashta मगर याद आया. Once again, my thoughts drift towards your street, but then my long lost heart comes to my mind. I hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, we'll be very keen to hear your feedback and comments. Now, for our new viewers, a strong recommendation to access the episode titled Introduction to DGMC, because that will give you a good insight into the motivation and inspiration behind the podcast. If you have not joined us on the DGMC Facebook page and the DGMC Instagram account, we encourage you to do that. We would love to have you there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close this episode by sending a lot of love and light to all you dear viewers, and thanks for watching.